All right, this is our first lesson of the new unit. So if you're watching this, this is the 2-1 video in your checklist. Make sure you're following along, taking notes in your workbook on pages 32 and 33. This is also shown in pages 57 through 58 in the hardcover textbook, which is up on the materials counter. Our goal today is to write and graph linear equations using the slope-intercept form. So from our vocabulary, the slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. M is the slope, and b is the y-intercept, our new vocabulary word also. So starting on page 32 in your workbook, we're going to do questions 1, 2, and 3. We're going to skip number 4. You could try it on your own. And since it's the first lesson in a new unit, we are going to have a lot of notes in that blue section in your workbook. So make sure anything I have written in my blue section is in your blue section on that question. And so just some reminders, the symbol for slope is m, the symbol for the y-intercept is b. So when we see y equals mx plus b, m is the slope, b is the y-intercept. And so our first question says, sketch the graph of y equals negative 3/4 times x minus 5. So that equation is in my slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. We're going to write that a lot to remind ourselves. And you might notice first that the format says plus b, but this example is minus 5. And so that would confuse me. Remember, anytime we have minus, that we could be writing this as y equals negative 3/4 x plus negative 5 would be the same thing as minus 5. So trying to kind of make it match our format, if the format says plus b and it's minus 5, my b is negative. And so that might help us identify, now easily see my m and my b. And so I want to identify m and b. You see in my notes, I put the steps for sketching a graph of a line. For a line, I only need 2 points. So my first step is to place a point at 0, b, because that's the y-intercept. That's a very easy point to find. And then we're going to use our slope to use the rise and run to place a second point. So 2 points is all we need, and then we'll have a line. So we're going to do that by breaking down our m and our b. Our m is negative 3/4, and that represents my rise and my run, my rate of change. And so the top number tells me how far up and down I go from point to point, and my run tells me how far left and right to go from point to point. If it's positive, I go up. If it's negative, I go down. If the run is positive, I go to the right. If the run is negative, I go to the left. And then my b is easy to identify. My b here is negative 5. That's the point where the line should cross the y-axis. So that means that there should be a point at 0, negative 5. So x will be 0. That means it's on the y-axis, and we're down at negative 5. So first you have to set up your graph. I already set mine up, so maybe copy mine. I put the x-axis high up 2 units away from the top because I saw that the b was negative and the slope is negative, so I wanted a lot of space in the negatives. And then my y-axis goes up and down, right down the middle. So once those are there, I have my origin labeled, which is 0, 0. And I'm going to place a point, like step number 1 says, place a point at my b. So from 0, I'm going to go down 5 units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Label it negative 5. And so I'm going to place a point there at 0, negative 5, because that's my b. So next, I'm going to use my rise and my run to place a second point from there. So starting at my b, my rise is negative 3, so that means I'm going to go down 3. 1, 2, 3 units. And then my run is positive 4, so I'm going to go forward 4 units. 1, 2, 3, 4. And place another point there. So now I have 2 points. My slope tells me the space between every 2 points, right? Down 3/4, down 3/4. So I went down 3 and I went over 4. Now I'm going to connect those 2 points with a line. I don't want to run into my negative 3. But my line should also go long through the entire graph. And then on the ends, I put arrows because that line will go on forever. And that's my graph. I sketched my graph with my M and my B. So for number 2, we're going to actually do the reverse. And I think that'll help us understand the format. We're going to write the equation of this line shown in y-intercept form, slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b is my slope-intercept form. Again, there's more notes. Just something to think about to check yourself. If my slope is positive, my line should be going up and to the right. I read it like a sentence left to right. So with a positive slope, it should be going up because my run is positive and my rise is positive. If I have a negative slope, it should be going down and to the right. Maybe my rise is negative and my run is positive. Or my run is negative and my rise is positive, right? So looking at this graph for number 2, I know already that my slope should be positive, so I can double check myself there. And so to have my format filled out, it's kind of like fill in the blank. So at the end, down at the bottom, my final answer should be y equals blank, x plus blank. I should fill in those blanks. I want to know m and I want to know b. X and y will be changing. Those represent all the points along my line, but the slope will stay the same and the y-intercept will stay the same. So I'm going to look for m and b. M is my rise over run, my slope, my rate of change, right? So rise over run, I need to compare 2 points on my graph. They showed me 2 points already. There's many other points along the line. I try to only use points that are right at where the 4 corners meet of the units, so I can count full units. So from one point to the next, I want to map out what is the route, right? To get from this point here, 3, 0, to the next point, I'd have to go up 2 units and over 3 units. So that's a positive 2 rise, and to the right, positive 3 run. So my rate of change, I'm going up to over 3 every time. That's my slope, rise over run. B is even easier because I just have to look to find it. B is the y-intercept, so it's where my red line intercepts with the y-axis. The y-axis is the vertical axis. So where do they intercept? Where do they cross? They cross here at this point right here. So what is the number for that point? I see my origin, 0, 0, and so that red point is down 1, 2 units, so at -2. So my B is -2 because there's a point on my line at 0, -2. So now that I know my M and my B, I'm just going to fill in those blanks. Y equals 2/3 x plus -2. Like we talked about in number 1 though, to be the most simplified, I would do 2/3 x minus 2. I wouldn't want my final answer to be plus a negative. I think that's just because in math, we always try to be having our final answers as short as possible, as simplified as possible. So y equals 2/3 x minus 2. So right there, we've already met our goal. We wanted to write and graph the equations. I wrote an equation and I graphed an equation. We are going to do number 3 though, because it involves the slope formula. So if I don't have a picture of the line, I can calculate the slope. I can do that from a word problem. I can also do that if I have 2 points. So in my notes, we're going to write the slope formula. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. What are x1, x2, y1, y2? Those are the numbers from 2 points. So if you see the example down at the bottom. And so in our problem, we have 2 points. We have 5, 4 and -1, 6. Every point is an x and a y value, so I just have 2 x and y values. And those little numbers, the 1 and 2, are just called subscripts, and that just means x number 1 and x number 2. So my first point is 5, 4, so that's x number 1 and y number 1, because it's the first point. And then for my second point, I have x number 2 and y number 2. And so to write an equation in slope-intercept form, I need to know the slope and I need to know the intercept. So that's what we're going to find. We're going to first find the slope because m is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I'm going to look at what I labeled. y2 is 6 and y1 is 4. So I'm going to do 6 minus 4 over x2 is negative 1 and x1 is 5. So I'm going to do negative 1 minus 5. So 6 minus 4 is 2. Negative 1 minus 5 is negative 6. The order matters a lot, so make sure you're following the formula exactly. And again, we want to have the most simplified answer. 2 over negative 6 is okay, but if I want to simplify my fraction, I notice that both the top and the bottom can be divided by negative 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3. And I usually don't put the negative on the denominator. I'm not actually sure why, but most of the time we'll see it off to the side because the whole number is negative. 2 divided by negative 6 would give me a negative decimal. So my fraction is negative. Usually we'll put it off to the side. Sometimes you'll see it on the number on top. And then for my slope, I could put it with the rise or the run. It wouldn't matter, but I wouldn't put it with both. I would keep my negative either negative 1 or negative 3. But either way, that's my m. So I found my slope is negative 1/3. Now I'm going to find my b. This is kind of harder, but you won't have to do this very often. So we're going to find b. We're going to find b by using our slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. And we're going to change this form to solve for b instead of solve for y, because that's what we're looking for. So we're going to get b by itself by subtracting mx from both sides, because now I'll have b equals y minus mx. That's helpful because I actually know y and m and x. We just found m is negative 1/3, and then we have x's and y's. So I'm going to use the x and y from one of my points. I can't mix and match, so I'm going to just choose one, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Maybe I'll use my second point, negative 1 comma 6. So x is negative 1 and y is 6. That's what x and y represent, all the points along the line. So if I plug those numbers in, I'll have b equals y minus m times x. And I'm going to evaluate using PEMDAS. First, I'm going to multiply negative 1/3 times negative 1. A negative times a negative is a positive. 1 times 1/3 is 1/3. And then I still have 6 minus that. I haven't touched that yet. So b equals 6 minus 1/3, which is 5 2/3. And that's my b. b is 5 2/3. So again, if I want my final answer to be my equation, I'm just going to fill in the blanks. Y equals blank x plus blank. So m is negative 1/3 and b is 5 2/3. That is my final answer. We're skipping number 4. You can try it if you want. And then I also have a slide that I think would be nice if you wanted to pause and look at it. It's just a good reminder of some examples of a positive and negative slope and some different y-intercepts. Might be something good to read. But after this, you're going to go back and update your checklist because now you watched the 2-1 video and now you're moving on to the Do You Understand in your workbook and also on Savvas. So be following along and taking notes on your workbook for that too. Good luck.